Before we begin today's story, please let me know if you're a fan of exploring unexplained and at times frightening events. And the best way you can do that is by clicking the like button for a big thumbs up. Now today, I'm going to be talking about an event which left a family terrified and investigating police officers accepting their unbelievable explanation about what had happened to them, capturing the immediate attention of national news. This is a story about a relatively normal situation which most of us can relate to, as most of us have had the experience of enduring a long, boring road trip, and often these journeys are undertaken with family or friends where we're cramped in uncomfortable car seats, often driving into the night to get to where we're going, and occasionally the monotony is disrupted by an unexpected event, such as the dangers of encountering an animal on the road, or the frustrations of getting stuck behind some slow-moving vehicle only to have it speed up as we enter the overtaking zones. But today's story is a little bit different and certainly frightening when it comes to unexpected road trips in the middle of nowhere. We're going to look at an incident that took place in a location that is at times referred to as the Earth's most long, boring and monotonous stretch of highway. It would terrify the vehicle's occupants, leaving them incredibly distraught, and their story would go on to receive global media attention. Throughout the night of January 20th, 1988, Faye Knowles and her adult sons, Patrick 24, Sean 21 and Wayne 18, were travelling in their Ford Telstar across the Nullarbor Plain. The Nullarbor takes its name from the Latin words nullus and arbor, which together means no trees, and is traversed by vehicles along the Eyre Highway. This highway is about as remote as it gets, with this arid stretch of desert road covering a length of about 1,100 kilometres or 684 miles, from east to west between South Australia and Western Australia. The Eyre Highway is best known for being long, flat and straight, and isolated crossing is regarded as a real endurance test for both vehicles and drivers, where even today indications of civilization are limited to only a few vastly separated roadhouses and the sporadic passing of travellers and truckers. Concentration can be difficult for drivers in the flat landscape. For example, one stretch of the highway is dead straight for 146 kilometres, and this section has become known as the longest straight stretch of road in the world. Driving the Eyre Highway across the Nullarbor is not the kind of road trip where you would normally pull over and take your time to take photographs of sites or notable tourist points. In fact, there are a few accommodation options available along the way, and it's the kind of journey where drivers just get in and get it done. The Knowles family were doing just that. And following a long night of driving, at around 5 o'clock in the morning, the family were travelling east between the roadhouses of Madura and Mundrabilla. Sean Knowles was behind the wheel, keeping himself focused and his mind engaged on the driving by listening to music, when suddenly the car's speakers became strangely distorted and stopped working soon after. With his brother Patrick next to him in the front seat, he and Sean probably just assumed that the remote stretch of road had entered a bit of a radio black spot and that they would soon pick up the signal again as they got closer to Mundrabilla. But in hindsight, it would appear this radio disturbance may have been the first indicator of something ominous about to occur. 15 minutes later, Sean saw what appeared to be a strange large light in the distance. Now, a light seen while driving at night might not seem like something out of the ordinary, but this particular stretch of road was sparsely populated, certainly in 1988, and the Knowles hadn't seen another car for some time, so the sudden appearance of an unknown source of light caught Sean's attention, and he curiously began to observe and consider the possibilities of what it could be. Trying to assess the light for familiarity, he would be left wondering perhaps if it could be a fellow vehicle, maybe a large road train, or even an unexpected distant roadhouse. Somewhat jokingly, Sean asked Patrick if he thought it was a spaceship, but Patrick said he thought it was probably just a truck headlight. But Sean's curiosity grew, and he started driving faster in order to catch up the elusive bright light to get a closer look. Soon the Knowles family were all alert and focused on what Sean was closing in on, with him eventually narrowing and closing the gap of the car, which was travelling about 20 metres from the object. They were trying to work out what it was that they were seeing, when suddenly they were confronted by a white blinding light which continued to move along in front of their vehicle. Sean would later describe the source of the light as about 1 metre wide and glowing bright and white with a yellow centre. He compared the shape of the light as an egg in a teacup, which disappeared from sight after jumping around a bit. The object, which at first appeared to be either moving along the ground or immediately above it, then began to move back and forth. But this pattern of behaviour would suddenly take a concerning change, with the bright light swiftly moving from this position of travelling along the road to quickly repositioning itself to hover above the Ford Telstar. In an instinctive response, Sean swerved the car in the opposite side of the road, and in doing so, nearly collided with a vehicle towing a caravan coming in the other direction. The object then circled around to the right and then disappeared, leaving in pursuit of the caravan. However, it quickly lost interest in that vehicle and appeared to suddenly leap back to the Knowles Ford Telstar, landing on the roof and causing the car to lift off the road surface, and it began to shake quite violently. While this was happening, Faye opened the window and encountered what she would describe as smoke stuff that filled the car and immediately covered it in black stuff. Most people in this situation would respond by cowering into the smallest possible position in the back seat of the car. But in pure desperation to repel this object that was threatening her family, she reached her arm out of the car window and frantically tried to get a hold of it to get it loose from the roof. Following the event, she would go on to describe what she felt as having an unusual spongy texture, and she would also seek medical attention for her hand, which had become reddish and swollen and cold following contact with the object, which left on her some sort of fine black powder. While in contact with the car roof, the object could be heard emanating a high-pitched buzzing sound. Describing the effect of this sound, Faye recalled, "It felt like something was going into our heads." Patrick, the oldest son, would similarly comment that it felt like his brain was slowly being sucked out of his head. Not only had their car been apparently lifted off the road surface, and their conscious well-being had been somehow impacted, but the family said their voices were distorted and described it as if they were talking in slow motion. These unexplained effects finally stopped when the object lost its grip and dropped the car back on the road, which was immediately impacted by a burst tyre. The cause of the burst tyre was unclear, as Sean claimed to be travelling at 200 km an hour or 124 miles an hour, which is considered to be the top of the Ford Telstar's capability and tyre rating. But perhaps the ability to reach this top speed was due to the removal of friction as the vehicle was lifted from the ground. Sean was able to maintain control of the car, reducing its speed, and by some measure of luck, the car finally came to a stop by the side of the highway. The mysterious object by this time had once again disappeared, but it was unknown what might occur next. With adrenaline surging and the car temporarily immobilised from the blown tyre, the family ran towards some nearby bushes to take cover, where they remained hidden for over half an hour. Figuring the coast was clear, they cautiously returned to their vehicle and changed the punctured tyre in record time and left the jack and tools on the side of the road. They then proceeded towards the nearest health and safety, which was the Mundrabilla Roadhouse, where they reported to staff what had happened to them, and they would later go on to tell the same to police in Ceduna. Unknown to the Knowles, the police had ascertained a broader awareness of unusual events that night, including reports by the crew of a tuna fishing boat that were located 50 miles away, who also said they were buzzed by an unidentified flying object, and that their voices had also become unintelligible during this event. Investigating police officer Sergeant Jim Furnell would later comment that there was no way the tuna fishermen could have known about the Knowles family experience when they raised their own similar report. Also unknown to the Knowles, a truck driver, Mr. Graham Henley, saw at the same time and in the same area a strange light in his rear view mirror. He described it as like a strong spotlight, like a big fried egg hung upside down, which would be consistent with the description provided by the Knowles. He continued to look back in the mirror and kept the object in view for 5 minutes. Shortly after, Henley arrived at the Mundrabilla Roadhouse and he saw the Knowles car arrive. He was confronted by the frightened family, all trying to describe their experience. He then looked over their car and confirmed the presence of black ash in various areas, and likened it to a fine silicon sand with a burnt odour to it. He also noticed 4 indents on the roof of the car and the damaged tyre. The consensus of investigating police was that the statement provided by the Knowles was not disputed. The corroborating witness accounts would affirm the authenticity of their reported experience, but there was nothing much more the police could do from there, other than to be as equally perplexed as everyone else about this bizarre story. Skeptics would propose that after 13 hours of driving, the family were fatigued and in a susceptible mental state to experience what psychologists term small group panics, where a collective state of paranoia emerges. Nevertheless, their story would go on to gain immediate media attention, with interviews occurring on national TV the following day and newspaper reports globally. Perplexed by the strange black ash substance, the Victorian UFO Research Society would later send a sample to former NASA scientist Dr. Richard Haynes, who had it analysed in a laboratory in California. When the test results came back, Hayden's was amazed, with the results indicating the presence of oxygen, silicon, carbon, potassium, sodium chloride, but more importantly, however, there were also traces of astatine, which is the rarest naturally occurring element in the Earth's crust. And it's also a radioactive substance that breaks down fast under normal conditions. But oddly enough though, there was still radiation present in the enigmatic material. The Knowles family experience is just one of many similar stories involving sightings and at times the pursuit of vehicles by unidentified aerial phenomena along remote stretches of highway. Were it not for the fisherman and the truck driver coming forward with their own independent witness reports, the Knowles story may have simply been sidelined as another unsubstantiated hoax. When reflecting on this story, perhaps one thing we can be confident about is that there are likely many other people out there with their own untold stories of strange and terrifying encounters that will remain untold simply because they are just too unbelievable. Well, that's all we have time for today. I hope that you enjoyed this story and that has left you pondering some of your own thoughts and beliefs about what you think happened to the Knowles family.